To that, I just want to say I think it's incredible to see that you are not just participating in any way, but in this amazing fishbowl studio that we have. If you want to, you can even upload your picture online on the platform, and then we can see your faces, your lovely and probably very friendly faces on the avatars that are visible in the studio. So please do so if you want to. Now, with that being said, I will not keep you any longer because we have an exciting program. And when I say exciting program, I must also say exciting speakers. Because we will have our very first speaker in a bit, which will be none other than Ms. Biljana Sirakova, who is the EU Youth Coordinator. And she will tell us more about how young people's voices are included at the European level. Then we will also have Bram Smolenaars, who is a future mentor from the municipality of Eindhoven. And Bram will tell us more about how we can make young people's voices heard at a local level. And last, but of course, definitely not least, we will have with us Floris Muller, one of the two Dutch coordinators of this European Year of Youth, who will take us through what the year has looked like here in the Netherlands and share some insights and best practices about youth participation. Now, with that being said, let's hop right into this event and session. And I would like to give the word to Biljana Sirakova, the first ever EU Youth Coordinator.
Hello everyone. Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be here with you today in this virtual studio. So yes, my name is Biljana. I work in the European Commission, and I would like to talk to you about the European Year of Youth. We all work for and with young people, but in different areas of responsibility. So what I would like to do first is to start talking about what is the European Commission specifically working on in youth policy. And then I'll share with you three key learning points, three lessons that we got from the European Year of Youth, and some examples linked to that. So let's start off on this aspect. What is the European Commission working on in the youth policy? What can it do? So I have prepared just a few questions to check with you. And it's question statements that can be either true or false. So when you look at these four statements, do you think that they're true? And I don't think I see a way to see some of your responses, but just think about each of one of them. Can, for instance, the European Commission propose that member states teach the European Union in school? That is part of the curriculum. Is this true or false? If all member states agree, the European Commission can propose to lower voting age to 16. Do you think this is true or false? Then another example is that the Commission can propose a directive so that all countries have a national youth council. And the last one is that all countries have a national youth strategy. So the answer to actually for all of these four statements is that they are false. We have a specific set of responsibilities and competencies when it comes to young people. And unfortunately, many of these areas are something where it is the member states who decide what is the voting age, whether a country has a national youth council or not, what is taught at school or not. This is part of the responsibilities of member states. So in a way, this is just to say that when it comes to young people, there are certain things that we can or cannot do. And I started with saying what we cannot do, but of course there is a lot more that also we can do. So let me talk a little bit about them. So what we can do is we have a framework for youth cooperation when it comes to at the European level, and this is the youth strategy. It's a very short, maybe 15 pages document in a user-friendly language. It's available in Dutch. So when you get these presentations, I also encourage you to take a look at that, because this gives us the framework for how we work together with young people across borders, so the European cooperation framework. And I'll talk about what its pillars are. Then what we have is also a EU Youth Dashboard of indicators, because if we have a framework of what we can do for young people, we also have to keep track of what is the progress and monitor and see how we're doing. And then finally, as part of this framework, we have 11 youth goals, which actually are youth goals which were decided by young people, by European young citizens a few years back. So these 11 goals, you can see them here, and in the document which I mentioned, their descriptions say, what do young people expect from us, from decision makers, from European politicians, what they expect for themselves and for Europe. And you can see some of these things, and some of them are, of course, similar to maybe UN Sustainable Development Goals, but there are also some which are interesting, like goal number 9 here, which is about participation of young people, that this is one of the things they expect today, that they are included in all the decisions that impact their lives. Then let me just mention briefly what the strategy is about. And as I said, it's very user-friendly. It's a short document. But what we work on at the European level is 3 main areas. So as I said, there are a number of things that the countries can do at their level, maybe at the national, regional level. At the European level, we work on encouraging that young people are part of democratic life, that they're culturally, economically, politically, civically included. So this is the engage pillar. Then the second thing where we can add value at the European level is this connection of young people across borders. So whether it's when young people go on an Erasmus, or they're part of a volunteering action abroad as part of the European Solidarity Corps, or any kind of opportunity to go abroad, to study, to work, to travel, etc. And then the third part, which is empower, it's about how do we support young people through supporting youth organizations, whether it's national youth councils, youth NGOs, at whatever level. So we support young people through supporting the structures that are representative of them. So these are the 3 main areas where we work on. And this is what we focus on our work when we compare to the member states. So I'll go next to maybe 3 lessons that we learned from the European Year of Youth. And I cannot say that there's something completely new, and I'm sure that they will ring a bell for all of you. But I think it's the year has made us understand just the importance and maybe some nuances in this. So the first aspect is communication. So when it comes to communication, clearly, and as I'm sure many of you, we try to communicate with young people, and we try to do that in a user-friendly language so that they understand what the decisions are at stake. So what we have done also for this year is we understood the importance of putting everything in one place as much as possible. So we did this on the European Youth Portal, and the European Youth Portal had also a kind of European Year of Youth collaboration hub. We carefully looked at what we are putting there so that it has an angle for young people, that it's interesting for them. And it's available in the local languages. It's available in a language that young people can understand very well. It is clear and concise. But also another thing that we did quite a lot is work on social media, because in preparation of the year, when we asked young people, how would you like to stay informed? 68% said that their preferred channels among everything is social media. And so this year particularly, we upped our actions and activities and communication on social media, especially on Instagram, but also Facebook, Twitter, and on Discord, where we now have a community. And we have seen really a lot of interaction there. Something new that we tried this year, and which I think can be useful at other different levels as well, to listen more to the conversations that are happening on social media. So not just to kind of post things there as announcement notifications and never looked at so much at the comments in terms of course, there is community management aspect, but we try to really also take the inputs that are coming from these channels into account. Another thing that we did is when trying to explain what the year is about, what the EU is doing for young people, we really went back to all of the different services that are available to young people and asked them to update the information in a youth-friendly language so that it's clear and understandable, and we published everything online. So this first aspect about communication was very critical. Second aspect is about the connection. I'm sorry, I think this switched a little bit, connection. So in the connection space, what we learn, and it's so important that we first start talking to each other, all the different services which are part of the Commission and even bigger the European Union. So this connection between the services is important. When I started saying what each one of us is working on, it was so important in preparation of the year to understand what are our responsibilities, what is every service doing for young people in order to find complementarity of the actions and not to repeat each other and to all go into the same direction. So this connection between the different services was very important. Another one was the connection with young people and decision makers. This is one thing which they said they expect from this year. So we organized a lot of different events, especially these youth policy dialogues with commissioners, where young people could come to Brussels to travel and have a physical event in Berlaymont that is taking face-to-face to meet the commissioners and discuss policy issues with them. So this is something was appreciated. And as mentioned, this connection between them, so young people who meet each other from across countries. And then the final aspect, which I want to just briefly talk about, is participation. So again, in preparation of the year, we asked what young people would like to see from this year. And the top thing that came up is that society and decision makers listen more to their opinions, and that the young people are included in the decisions, they're part in the design process, the actions are co-created with them. So this is something that we wanted to really push for this year, and a lot of our actions have gone in that direction. We do have a lot of actions that are linked to this participation of young people. Just to briefly mention, as I do not have so much time, but the EU Youth Dialogue, and maybe we can cover in more questions if you have more questions in that. We have this consultation process, which is happening at the national level with young people. We have different youth structures. One example is the Young European Ambassadors. We have the Youth Sounding Board in external action, which is also where young people are consulted on different decisions in this policy area. We have this year a Voice Your Vision platform, where young people can voice their concerns and opinions and recommendations and solutions on a set of different actions. We launched the Youth Talks, which is kind of like TED-style talks, where we give young speakers the center stage so that they share their ideas. And finally, the Pool of European Young Journalists, which is an initiative where young journalists write on selected topics. So we have given all these opportunities for young people to speak up, to voice their concern, to be part of the decisions, to be part of the solutions. And I think this is one of the biggest learning points for us, that when we have done this, we have first received a lot of brilliant ideas. It has made a lot of our processes more efficient, so that we first get the buy-in from young people, get the better needs, understanding of their needs, and then launch different initiatives. And it has created a lot of interest on the sides of the young people. So this is just something that I wanted to highlight, and I can definitely tackle maybe some more of some answers in your questions. So working together between services so that we understand each other, and then focus on communication, connection between young people and decision makers, but also between the different services, and finally focus on youth participation so that they are implicated in all the different decisions. Thank you very much, and I'll stop here and happy to take further questions.
Thank you so much, Biliana, for those insightful words. And definitely the examples that you give at the end, I think they're very useful for the people tuning in and watching. Unfortunately, due to the fact that we're a bit short on time, we'll be going over to a very exciting next segment, which is the presentation of Bram Smolenaars. And I think that will tap perfectly into this vision of empowering, connecting, and engaging young people. Because Bram will tell us more about the Future Mentors program in the municipality of Eindhoven, where they have a very creative creative way to get youth participation included at the local level. So Bram, please do take it away.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here today as well in this fishbowl. In the next 8 or 10 minutes, I will give an example of how young people can be enabled to thrive politics without the usual participation program. And as already mentioned, it's called the Future Mentor Program, which is part of this European Year of Youth. A small note about myself. My name is Bram Smolenaars. I am a master's student manufacturing systems at the Eindhoven University of Technology. But most importantly, I'm one of the future mentors of the city of Eindhoven. Let me introduce you to my 3 fellow future mentors of Eindhoven, as well as our former mayor of the city of Eindhoven, John Jorritsma. And if you picture a mentoring program, you will probably picture a structure like this, right? Or young people soaking up the knowledge of some very experienced person, in this case a mayor. Well, let's imagine the opposite. Let's imagine a reversed mentoring program where a city leader is exposed to the bright thinking of young people. This is exactly what we did in the city of Eindhoven last year. We had a reverse mentoring program where a city leader is not only exposed to the bright thinking of younger citizens, but also to their dreams and fears, and collaboratively work on a more sustainable city. And this Future Mentor Program, this reverse mentoring structure, it was designed by the city of Espoo in Finland in preparation towards the Eurocities annual conference, which was held in Finland this year. And the goal of this program was to expose city leaders to the bright thinking of young people and collect the dreams and fears of the youth. So, how would you mentor your mayor or your CEO of your organization? I would like you to think on this question, while in the meantime I will highlight a few of the aspects which we encounter during this Future Mentor Program. So, in our first session with the mayor, we gave him an empty cup. And if you are familiar with the Dutch language, you will remember a saying which goes, borrowing a cup of sugar from your neighbors. Well, young people don't do this anymore nowadays. They will use Gorillas or Getir or Uber Eats to order their food. But borrowing a cup of sugar from your neighbors is a metaphor at this moment for the relationship that you have with your neighbors. So we sent out our mayor into the city and let him borrow a cup of sugar from different types of young people in our city. And if you take a cross-section of young people in the city of Eindhoven, you will see a lot of engineering students, design students, you will see a lot of working people. So in return for borrowing a cup of sugar from these different types of young people, these students shared their dreams and fears for the city of Eindhoven. So by the end of the day, he did not only had a complete overview of the types of young people living in his city, he also had a collection of their dreams and fears in terms of sugar in this case. And throughout this program, most importantly, he was in charge, or he was in the lead, or we were in the lead, and he had to do the job. So, and that's difficult for a mayor because he is not used to develop his own solutions and bring his own ideas to the table. But as you can see, he was very much enjoying himself. And in between these mentoring sessions over the year with our mayor, we received a lot of input from young people across the city. Input sessions were organized, brainstorms, team evenings, and we used all these moments to validate the ideas that the mayor came up with during our mentoring sessions. And in the end, we went from idea to agenda, and we used design thinking concepts to create an agenda based on the ideas of the mayor. But the real magic of this program, here we go. The real magic of this program was the European network. So this mentoring program was not only executed in Eindhoven, it was executed across over 30 cities all around Europe. And this meant that if you were facing a certain challenge, or if you were interested in how other cities are dealing with the same problem, you could just go there. You could talk to your future mentors across borders. So that's what we did. One of the cities that we visited was the city of Berlin in Germany, because we were interested in developing a more inclusive nightlife in Eindhoven. Well, what city to visit better than the city of Berlin? And it turned out that in Berlin they have this platform where nightclub owners and policymakers are collaborating for a more sustainable city. For example, policymakers are learning from nightclub owners what a nightclub or inclusive nightlife is meaning for a certain local community or an urban area. Whereas on the other hand, nightclub owners would learn from policymakers how to fit their business into alignment with the development of an urban area. So we brought back these aspects, and we're now currently implementing them in our city. But the real cherry on the cake was the EuroCities annual conference in Espoo, held last June in Finland. This is an annual conference of the EuroCities network, a European network with over 200 European cities. And I had the honor to accompany my mayor to this conference. And so did 27 other future mentors like me with their mayor. And young people had a very special seat on the table during this 3-day conference, because we had an equal seat, meaning we could either host, moderate each meeting, or we could actively participate. And this was really, really important. And to make sure our ideas were anchored in a policy, we provided 6 key recommendations to the EuroCities network. And we handed them over here, as you can see, to Dario Nardella, president of EuroCities and also mayor of Florence. So what's next? Well, for the city of Eindhoven, we are now with 10 future mentors, meaning the program is quite a success. We also have a new mayor, Jeroen Dijsselbloem, as you can see here. And we are currently preparing a new future mentor program for the year 2023. But since we grow in numbers, we are also thinking about assigning future mentors to, for example, an alderman or a CEO of a big company in our city. So the program turned out to be quite a success. So to conclude my story, why does it work? A reverse mentoring structure. Well, first of all, there are 3 key ingredients, basically. First of all, it is an easy, accessible program. By taking a mayor out of his comfort zone, it is quite accessible for young people to join. Second, the European network. So this was a real eye-opener for me personally, but also for other future mentors. Because, well, for example, next month we go to Ghent in Belgium to learn about their excellent youth council. Next year we will go to Estonia to learn from the best when it comes down to creating a digital society. And if you face a certain challenge in your city, that doesn't mean that this challenge has not been unsolved yet. There can be cities out there facing the same struggles. So use this European network, this European view, this European perspective to learn from each other. And third and finally, the final ingredient is ask young people what's in it for them. If you really want to participate, let them participate in politics. Make sure it's not a one-directional way of receive or of gathering information, but make sure that they will participate because there is something in for them. Having said that, I would like to thank you. I'm looking forward if you have any questions, and that's it.
Thank you so much, Bram, for that incredible presentation. I'm sure that all the policymakers that have empty sugar pots in their cupboards right now must be inspired in some way to get their sugar in some other way. I really want to thank you. Also what you said, if anyone has any questions, please do submit them. But maybe if I can start I really noticed about the presentation and the examples that you mentioned is that it's not just the typical sort of youth participation where you'd sit down at a table and have your sheet of paper with insights and input, but you really try to figure out these creative ways to get your input to these policymakers. Why is that? Why did you choose for a more creative approach?
Yeah, well, first of all, no matter how you turn it, it's still politics, or you're trying to engage young people with politics. And I think the usual way of politics is very formal, which is quite far away from for most of young people. Because young people, they're busy developing themselves, their identity, their professional career. So we chose a different way to make sure that we made politics available for all types of young people. So without the suits, we never met at the town hall, but we, kidnapped our mayor into the city without him knowing where he would end up that day.
Yeah, good point. I also see that we have a question from the audience, from Suwena, and she asks, Bram, have you made an overview of what the qualities are that some European countries have with regards to youth participation? So you mentioned some of these other young people you met at the conference. Do you have any sort of best practices that you learned from them?
I think that's an excellent question. First of all, I think this is also an idea for the youth platform, which Biljana showed earlier. It would be really handy also for us to have this overview on this website. Well, in the end, each country has its own specialism. So I know, for example, that Germany has a very strong, formal way of youth representation in local politics. So that is something of which I think everyone in Europe can learn from. Whereas other cities, like I mentioned, Estonia, or for example, the city of Tallinn, they have an excellent digital way of participation, not only youth participation, but participation in general.
That you can learn from then.
Exactly, yeah.
Thank you so much. Also, thank you, Svena, for that question. And I go right over to Margriet, because Margriet has another question for you, Bram. She actually has two questions. The first one being, do you feel like you have a diverse group of young people? So I think an important question, how do we make sure that when we include young people, it's not just the young people with higher end education, that we have a diversity in terms of ethnicity? And the other question that she has is, how do these mayors respond to this reverse mentoring? Are they very open to it? Are they not? So maybe we can start with the first one about the inclusivity.
Yeah, the inclusivity is a very good one. It's a very important. You can never reach 100% inclusivity, but it's important to be as inclusive or diverse as possible, which is also depending on the city. So for example, for our city, we have a lot of, it's an engineering-oriented city. So we have a lot of engineering students, but you want to make sure that also students from other disciplines are in this program as well. So that is something that we really want to take into account during this development of this next program
and
next
perhaps
year.
Even people that aren't studying, right? I mean,
for sure, working
like
students.
True. Cool.
Regarding the second question. Yeah, they respond real funny because they are out of their comfort zone and they're used to don't say anything stupid because everything is on the record. But when you take them away, and you must make sure that they know it's not recorded and it's a safe space, so to say, then they will open up and they really enjoy bringing their own ideas to the table, because that's not something mayors typically are able to do in their daily work.
Yeah. Amazing, that sounds incredible. We have one more question, very briefly, from Herman. And he says, what are some of the possibilities and priorities that young people mention through these exchanging programs for Europe?
What do you mean?
So maybe, what are some of the most important points right now? When it comes to the things that young people bring.
Definitely sustainability at this moment. I think that is quite relevant at this moment with the climate top now. I think it's held today. Yeah. That is, I think, the biggest challenge that students are facing, or young people are facing at this moment.
Quite clear. So work to do for all the people listening. Make impact wherever you can. Bram, I want to thank you so much. Thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
going to our final presentation, which will be given by Floris Muller. And Floris, he works at the National Agency Erasmus Plus Youth and European Solidarity Corps, and he is this year's national coordinator, together with Nusret Moussa from the National Youth Council here in the Netherlands. So I think very interesting, incredible insights probably. So Floris, the floor is all yours.
Yes, well, thank you, Ajar. I'm Floris. I'm coordinator of the European Year of Youth, and I do this together with Nusret, like Ajar already said. And maybe start with the beginning, because we are talking about this year already quite a lot, but what is it actually? Well, it's an initiative. It was initiated last year by the European Commission, well, to raise the voice of young people even more throughout Europe. And for that reason, this initiative was brought in 2022, where all over Europe, coordinators took place of every country, but mostly the chance were given for young people to raise their voice. During this presentation, I want to give you a little bit of a glimpse on what we've been doing in the Netherlands and what we're still doing. I hope to inspire you maybe a little bit, or maybe not. Hopefully you learn a little bit from it. So when we started this year, we were really thinking on, okay, what is it that we actually are going to do? Like I said, the topic of this year is young people get your voice heard, or raise up your voice around specific topics, also sustainability, like Bram mentioned. But when we started thinking, the question was, okay, young people get your voice heard, but actually to who? And if your voice is heard, it's not only young people say, okay, this is what I think it's important, but also that professionals and organizations and actually society as a whole does something with the voice of young people. So it's also to make sure, at least this was one of our approach elements, to make sure that the voice is also really heard and something is done with it. Another element of our approach, we also thought like, okay, well, to be honest, I'm not the expert on youth participation, for example. I know quite a lot of it, but I think a lot of people know way more than I do. So how are we really going to add value? And one of the things that we decided, or basically the main thing is, okay, we really want to build and strengthen connections, so that the Year of Youth also will continue after this year. That connections are made, that people will grow together. So let me take you through some of the things that we that we started. Let's put it like that. And maybe it can be helpful for you. Let's start with connecting young people with each other. So, for example, what we've done, we had a little bit of budget, Nusret and I, and we gave it to some young initiatives, young people who wanted to organize an activity and want to get other people on board as well. So a simple thing that we've done. And we helped them a little bit, okay, and how can you use this money in a wise way? Well, basically we decided, we left it to the youngsters. If they had questions, they could come to us. Another one was, we made it possible that youth councils from all over the Netherlands were brought together twice this year to share ideas, to share their learnings in their own municipality, for example, and what are the challenges that you are facing, etc. And we organized also a youth festival on making impact with over 500 young people who also learn from each other, share ideas, and also got workshops on how to get your ideas into practice. If we talk about learning between professionals, well, actually one thing is still there to come. This is a conference on the 24th of November in Den Bosch. It's called Verander. It's about inclusive youth participation. So if you want to come, feel free to check it online and to apply. And also we brought together policymakers from different departments. To give you an example, one thing that's still in line in September is when we have a session with policymakers from different departments, from different ministries in The Hague, who all have something to do with young people within their department. We bring them together basically to learn from each other. Okay, what do you do? What do I do? How do you get young people involved? What's working for you? What isn't working for you? Just to share, to get a connection, and also to get them to find each other and to learn from each other. Sometimes, by the way, in my presentation, I put some tips. You can read them, but I think for the matter of time, I will go through them rather quick. Another thing what we've been working on is the connection between young people with professionals, with organization. And to give one example of that is a network event which we organize for municipalities with professionals and youngsters. To make it very concrete, next week we have it actually also for Eindhoven. They organize a network evening for all their partners who are involved in youth work and also youth care. So they are invited to this network event, and we ask them also, please bring 1 or 2 or maybe 3 young people who are connected with your organization, bring them with you. And during this evening, what we will do is basically just connect these organizations and youngsters with each other. So also talking with youngsters instead of about youngsters. And give a little bit of input from real experts and professionals on what to think about if you want to get young people more on board. I put some tips down there, feel free to read them afterwards. If I put like a euro sign, that means there's a financial tip. For example, in this case, if you have a group of youngsters who want to be more active, or if you are an organization and you want to get young people more involved, there's also a subsidy called Jongerenparticipatie at Erasmus Plus Youth, which you might use to actually get something started. Some things on connecting young people with society. We organized several workshops for young people on how to get your idea into practice. And also which financial means do you need for that and how to start that. And we organized a festival on all kind of European possibilities. And to mention a few, also for young people, but also for organizations, is, for example, solidariteitsprojecten, which is funding for young people to actually to organize something for their neighborhood. Or verschilmakers from the Oranje Fonds. This is also a fund specifically meant for young people. Or Ik ben geweldig from NGR, the Dutch Youth Council. All these funds are specifically there for young people, mostly up to 30, to get things done, get things started, and to make impact in society. For organizations, you may know MDT, maatschappelijke diensttijd, where you also can organize a project to get young people on board. Might be very interesting. And the final kind of a hidden gem, which I want to mention, is the European volunteering with European Solidarity Corps, which is for young people up to 30 who want to do voluntary work abroad and get everything refunded. So your travel cost, pocket money, food, which is a very nice possibility to make an impact abroad to develop yourself as well. So these are just some examples of things we've been working on this year. Basically, all come down to connecting people and experts with each other. So what to do next? Well, for us, there's quite a lot to do, but also for you, if you want to get young people more involved, you already heard some nice stories from Biljana, some examples. Bram gave a very nice example. But basically, the main message is just start. It can be big, it can be small. You can actually just, if you have an idea, just go to the football field and ask somebody, hey, I'm a policymaker over here and this is what we're working on. What do you think of this idea? And this can already be a start to get the voice of young people more into your business or into your organization. But you can also come up with a plan, for example, like Bram mentioned. And another thing is I want to give to you, well, kind of reconsider the balance between being preventive and being reactive to solving problems. What I see a lot within municipalities when I talk to them is, if it comes down to youth, is they're solving problems. When the problems occur, they try to solve it. And if you ask me personally, I think there should be quite a different balance and being more in the preventive way. And good to mention with that, I do not mean prevent specific this problem, but really think well, get young people on board even earlier so that these problems don't even occur. So not focus on the problems, but focus on, okay, how can I empower young people already from the beginning of our process? Talk with youngsters instead of about youngsters. And one good way to do it is by connecting departments. To give you an example of another municipality where I went, I had this idea of this a network evening I've been talking about. And I said to the policymaker youth, isn't this something that we should do within your municipality? And he said, okay, it might be a good idea, but that's not my cup of tea, because then you have to go to the combinatiefunctionaris. And this is exactly the point. So I think if they are sitting more often together, you can really integrate the voice of young people throughout the organization, instead of just having one person in charge of all youth participation, because that's not going to work on a sustainable way. And the last one, and I've mentioned that before, make use of existing expertise. There's already so much knowledge about youth participation. In one of the previous slides, I gave some organizations who are working on it. But make use of it, and really strengthen networks between organizations, and between people, and between youngsters and organizations. All right, so that's about, well, a little bit of an overview on this year, what we've done in the Netherlands. If you want to know more, feel free to contact me or contact my colleague. And if you have any questions, type them in the chat.
Floris, thank you very much. I think those were some great examples, and definitely I like the tips that you had on the slides. I think in particular for young people seeing it. Hey, we're a bit short on time, but I do want to ask you this one thing. The work that you've been doing is amazing. We've seen amazing examples, but how can we make sure that, moving beyond this year of youth, this European Year of Youth, how can we make sure that we still give youth participation that same sort of urgency that it requires?
Well, first of all, thank you. I don't think, by the way, I think there are already a lot of people doing amazing stuff. I just need to, I want to connect some of them. Well, I think it has to be an integral part of policy everywhere. That's my personal opinion. So basically how I started every conversation I had, or I did it in every conversation, I asked the question, so okay, how are you talking with young people? How do you get them involved? And basically what you want is that everybody asked himself this question. I think by forming these networks between people that this question will occur more often, so that it also will be beyond this year. Right.
So, just keeping the conversation going is a main focus in that. Yeah. And thank you very much, because you also included your contact details in the end. So to all the people watching at home, feel free to flood Floris's email inbox with all your questions. Additionally, you can find information about the European Year of Youth on njr.nl/EYY. Now, with that being said, Floris, I want to thank you so much once again, Bram, Biliana, and of course our audience for sending in all your questions and being very interactive in this session. Thank you very much. We'll see each other at the next time. And for now, I want to say have a good day.